I've spoken at 2 conferences in the last 2 weeks, and I've heard the phrase overwhelm about 6 times. And I was like, it's time to talk about it.
The School of Podcasting with Dave Jackson.
Hey, I'm Dave Jackson from the School of Podcasting.com, where I help you plan, launch, and grow your audience. Overwhelm is when you're like, oh man, I can't, you got, right? You've got too many responsibilities. Everything is have to. Just more and more things are piling on your plate, and you're just like, that's overwhelm. So let's talk about how we can battle overwhelm when it comes to your podcast. Number one, so many people think when I start a podcast, I have to do it forever. I will start a podcast about the Cleveland Browns, and I will do it forever until they win the Super Bowl, which is kind of forever. And so, no, you can actually do 4 episodes and go, there you go. That's it. Also, I see people think about the audience. I'm going to do this podcast. I don't want to look stupid because it will be in front of the audience. And when you first start, you don't have one yet. It's just something to think about. Also, that whole sounding stupid thing, it's not live radio. You can edit yourself and edit out all the dumb things. In fact, I typically recommend that you do not release the first thing you recorded because it's not very good. I'm just saying, get somebody to look at that thing. So what I have for you are some reasons and some tools to help you overcome overwhelm. Number one, when I do an interview, I have a piece of paper with the questions on, and then I typically have a pen that doesn't click. This one does, but I have a pen that doesn't click. So I have my questions over here, and I have another one here in front of me. And if somebody asks, if they're saying something, I ask them a question, they're answering, I do a brain dump. And I go, oh, okay, standing out. That's all I wrote down, standing out. Then I can go back to listening. Because the problem is you're trying to listen as you're trying to remember, okay, standing out. Oh, wait, I got to ask him about this. Okay, and I'm still trying to listening. You got too much stuff going on in your brain. And in life in general, we have too much stuff going on in our brain. We've got Twitter, we've got Facebook, we've got TikTok, we've got Instagram, we've got email, we've got little Susie's soccer thing at 3 o'clock and blah, blah, blah. So here's step number one to overcome overwhelm. That is, do a brain dump. Write it down somewhere. Now, I have 3 tools that I use. One is Todoist. So let's say something comes in via email. Todoist, by the way, has a free program, and you can go into your Gmail and say, hey, add this as a to-do list and come back like 3 days later as a to-do item. You need a calendar. So that's your Google Calendar, whatever it is. If you need to schedule things like an interview and a podcast, there's Calendly has a free program. I like TidyCal. I use Acuity, which is now owned by Squarespace. But if you want a one-time fee, and you can go over to TidyCal. I have links to all this underneath. So I've got a to-do list. I've got a calendar. And the third thing you need is some sort of note-taking. So I use Evernote because it works on my phone. It works on a tablet. It works on a PC. It works on a Mac. Works everywhere. They have a free program again. And so now when something comes in via email, I ask myself, is this something that needs scheduled? Goes to my calendar. Is this something I need to do? Goes to Todoist. Is this something I want to remember? It goes into Evernote. And write down everything, because the problem is we have too many things on our plate and we can't move through them because we've got this much left of our brain in terms of power to get things done. Have you ever seen your computer just go because you got 37 million tabs open? Well, close some of those tabs and now your computer speeds up. Same thing with your brain. So write this stuff down so that when you focus on something, your full brain power can focus on that and you get more productive. The more productive you are, the less overwhelmed you feel because, well, stuff's getting done. So those are free tools, again, Google Calendar, Todoist, and Evernote. Now, there's a ton of note-taking things if you're like, oh, I use OneNote from Microsoft or Notion or whatever you use, but get something to get it out of your brain. And then, how do I decide what to do first? There are 4 types of items that come through. One is important and urgent. So let's say, I don't know, a heart attack. That's important and it's urgent and it needs taken care of right now. And so you don't want to live there. You don't want to live in important and urgent all the time. That will burn you out. Then there's important but not urgent. So maybe you need to drop a few pounds. Okay, that's important, but I'm going to do it over time. It's a long-term goal. All right. Then you have not important and not urgent. So these are things that are basically time waste. This is a YouTube rabbit hole. This is TikTok. Not urgent, not important. This is you wasting your time. Don't live there. Then there is not important, but it's urgent. So this is the text message that just came through that completely ruined your flow. So those are the 4 types of things, and those are the things you need to identify, like, yep, not urgent, not important. See ya. Keep that in mind. That's from Stephen Covey's book, First Things First. The other thing you want to do is, now that you've got them brain dumped, take that big thing. Let's say it's launching a podcast. I've broken down launching a podcast into 17 steps. You can find that at schoolofpodcasting.com/checklist. It's the podcast launch checklist. And instead of thinking, oh, I've got to do all this stuff, you break down into little bite-sized chunks. I'm trying to lose weight right now. How do I do it? I focus on it meal by meal. Is this a healthy meal? Is it under, say, 500 calories? Good. Let's do that. And as you start to do these things, you start to feel momentum building. You're doing one thing and then another thing and another thing and another thing, which gives you confidence to keep going. Another thing you can do to avoid overwhelm is to set up some boundaries. My family doesn't contact me on Sunday, my brother and my sister. Why? Because they know Sunday is podcasting day. And the other thing is, now that I have my Evernote, my to-do list, everything is set, I am super focused and I got more done in less time. The last thing I want to talk about is many times we get into things because somebody makes it look so easy. Michael Jordan makes basketball look so easy. Different guitar players make it look so easy. And then when you go to do it, you're like, hey, this is hard. So when you see somebody doing a podcast or you hear somebody doing a podcast, you're like, hey, wow, this is easy. You just talk to somebody and you ask them some questions, or maybe you talk about a certain subject. Yeah, everything out of my mouth. There's a lot of editing going on back here. It's not as easy as it looks. And the good ones always make it look so simple. And so when you go to do something that you've never done before, you are actually stepping out of your comfort zone. And that's where growth happens. That's a great thing. But the other thing you're going to find is that, hey, this is a lot harder than I thought it was. Yeah, the good ones make it look easy. Doesn't that suck? If you push through that, on the other side of your comfort zone is where really cool things happen. Everything you ever wanted to do the first time. I remember the first time I was driving with my mom in the car. I had my temps. We had this giant tank of a car, and I could have sworn I was on the sidewalk, and I was obsessed. I'm like, are you sure we're in the lane? It looks like, and now I'm like, when I go down the road, I'm like, all right, we got it. The first time we do anything, it's not good. It's not easy. It takes a while, but the more you do it, the easier it gets. So when you start something new, like a podcast, and you're like, oh, I don't like this. Well, number one, I can help you with that. But number two, keep pushing through. Make sure you're getting the results you want and keep pushing through. Don't get overwhelmed. Dump out your brain. Get organized. Get focused. Set some boundaries. Pound it out and move forward. Don't get overwhelmed with your podcast. It's not as easy as it looks, but it's also not as hard as you think it is, and I can help. I'm Dave Jackson. I help podcasters. It's what I do. Let's see what we can do together. Thanks for watching.